All right, Jason, you ready to get this going?
Dude, you know what
Dude,
we're ready to get going. We're done with the book. The
we are
the
done
the
with the book.
publisher has continued to harass us for all last minute things, and this thing is going to actually launch now, finally.
And I want to say we want to give a big thank you to Victoria Moz and Mark in terms of their stories, their insights, their guidance, their years of experience. We focus them on them in the book, and again, they were critical for a lot of the different chapters. And so we're really happy to bring their stories to you today to talk about how they've been able to scale with purpose and how they've been able to fight those on the front line and what lessons learned they can provide you in terms of the context of that overall. Jason and I were on the screen, say hello. Um, we're all in black on the photo. We're all in black on the screen here, so that's funny. Um, Co-founder of Carbon, lead partnerships here. Jason, a little bit about you.
Yeah. So, CEO of Blummer CPAs, our firm we run for 25 years, and CEO of Thrival for 15 years, I guess. So, education and community, and we do a bunch of webinars. And this one's particularly exciting because it's a four-part it's a four-part series because we have a book coming out, and we interviewed I will say a buttload of people. That's
It's
it's
technically
F
boatload. This is
Boatload, sorry,
for a
right.
family
So,
show.
so it's a family show. So we
Family show.
interviewed a boatload of people, but we're bringing all the people we interviewed onto these four shows, and the stuff they did to optimize their business, restructure it it made the book, right? We're writing about these people on the webinar, which is pretty amazing for y'all to be able to ask them questions. That's pretty crazy.
And Zane's on the call here, and he says a lot of those people are really nice, and that is true. They're all very nice people. And Zane's doing a good job in terms of advertising for his that happens later. So don't miss out. We're in part two here on the optimizers, but we are going to cover the intentional scalers and the culture builders. So Zane, we have you on a little bit later. But you can see those particular dates, sign up, and then ultimately, if you're not able to attend, we'll get you the recording. So. Today we're on the optimizers. So you can guys, there you go. There's the dates. There's the lovely pictures. Let's move on to the next one. So Jason, I'm gonna let you go. You got a little bit of you love the slides. Let's go with some slide love.
Some slide love. Yeah, I created this slide. Well, it's we actually put all the people we interviewed into categories, and this is the optimizer category. Actually, probably all the people we interviewed could be put in all the different categories. But these leaders and owners really did a lot of tweaking to their businesses. They really they lead with metrics. They just tweaked and changed things. And we just have this workflow slide. We're trying to turn data into behavior. Basically, these kinds of leaders that y'all get to ask questions of, they do things like they run a business, it's not working. They design it. They want metrics. They want to just start pulling data out of what they can know about their firm. And the book really talks a lot about that. It's about designing your organization better. These are the people that kind of did it without a book. They didn't need a book. It just became kind of insightful for them to do. And so they really took a science approach to figuring out, people, capacity, growth, team structures. And if you think they just went in and did it because they knew how to do it, that's not how we run businesses. We tweak it, we change it, we break it, we go, that didn't work. We change the columns, we try new things. That's how you run a business. That's how you run a firm. And these guys did that. So this is pretty exciting to hear from them.
And when you look at this, so again, when you look at Mark and Victoria Moses, and you look at their particular titles and what they're doing, an integrator, a COO, and then being a partner, having to run all those different hats, and being an operational expert. All of these folks, again, we get a lot of questions on, right? How do I know how to drive the right capacity? How do I know to get the productivity of what I want? How do I know that I'm going to measure those particular things? And these folks did a fantastic job. So without any further ado, Mark, say hi. We're going to start with, we'll go back. We're going to say hi to everybody first, Jason. That's just rude, man.
I thought we're
Mark,
just diving into Mark.
Mark's over. He's at Ignite CPA, longtime integrator, someone who I've spoken to over many years, and we've gone back and forth on how best to run firms. I would say, Mark, you're more of a mentor to me than the other way around.
Wow.
And again, runs a fantastic firm overall, super efficient, effective, and I'm really excited about what he's going to talk about in scorecarding. So, Mark, say hi.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Great job on the book, guys. Quite an undertaking, I'm sure, for sure. And if you missed the first webinar, the restructures, make sure you get a check that out. Super insightful for sure. And by the way, if Gary ever starts his indie band, I want in. They play a wicked washboard. So let's do that. And if you're too young to know what a washboard is, ask chat. All right. So, anyways, I'm the integrator here at Ignite. And if you follow EOS, you know what that is. My wife constantly asks me what it is. What do I do? And I can never tell her really. I don't really know the answer to that. We're a full service CPA firm. We have about 20 team members. Ignite's only about 3 years old, but in 2022, we merged two 10-year-old firms together. So we have a ton of experience, and we're out in Alberta, but we do have remote team members all in Canada, mind you, and it's great. So it's good. We're focused on intentional client service, efficiency, and team culture. And we have a passion statement of growing with you, and that's for our team, for our clients, for our firm, and for ourselves. So that's really who Ignite is.
And by the way, so we're going to go next to Victoria, who is surrounded by two Canadians. So, Victoria,
And
just you're in
I'm
good company.
Canadian as well.
Oh, yeah, you're Canadian as well. That's there we go. That's right, because Involta's up in you're also near Toronto as well. Uh,
Yeah.
so again, for your path, again, Involta was really, in my opinion, game changing in terms of being able to understand productivity and efficiency overall, and then ultimately got bought by Gavro. And then again, you work through that as well in a much larger situation. And so, thank you for being here. Give a little bit of background about yourself and details overall.
Yeah, so I was enjoying the fact that we are an almost all Canadian panel here. That's fun. I, yeah, have been through a number of um, mergers and acquisitions on both sides, so it's been really an amazing learning experience for me. I was in the accounting bookkeeping industry for a long time and recently retired, though I like to say I failed at retiring because I seem to be doing a lot more of spending time getting to know firm owners like we're seeing in these panels. I watched the first session as well, and my partner in crime over there, David Donardo, really pushed and challenged me a lot to be an integrator at Involta. And then when we moved on to GoRo, just continued to expand on that. So I love what we're doing. I love the idea of restructuring. I love bringing not just the data, but the people part of it into it and trying to figure out how to merge the two because you can find so much from the data. And then when you push it up against the people, that's probably where we learned most of what we had to figure out as we were going.
And last but not least, Mose Bawania. Now, I'm looking at the title slide here. I think there's a misspelling in there.
Oh wow, you're good. I was actually gonna
Because we
look
because
some
you
fun
did a
here.
LinkedIn post where it was hilarious about how you wanted to actually have what did the actual letters actually mean. And that was one of my favorite posts in the last like it was probably a year or so ago. And I know how the letters are stacked between you and your co-founder. And so I'm looking at this going, oh no, we got a misspelling here. But
Uh-oh.
uh-oh,
Sorry,
that's
boys.
Jason's
That's
fault, not
totally
mine.
fine. I thought it was intentionally kind of put in there to see if people are awake, but like you literally took the words out of my mouth, Ian, because I was gonna reference that LinkedIn post and I had a whole spiel and I don't know what to say now.
Yeah, so what, what
But
was what was what was the end result in that LinkedIn post? What was the one that you thought was the winner? I can't remember.
well, we said like, okay, AMLB, does it stand for a money laundering business? Morning Pounds, AMLB. And then, of course, there's like the normal, is it something else? And it's actually the acronym of my business partner, Ali Ludda, and my names. But Rachel Fish, actually, I don't know if she's here,
That's
but
right, it was
she
Rachel. Yes.
Rachel, yeah, she's the one who won a chicken dinner, I think. So yeah, thanks for pointing that up. Also, I'm a co-founder. The CEO is part like my partner and I are both co-founders. And Mark, interestingly, we just are going through EOS and just have aligned on who the integrator and visionary is. and I would love to chat with you more about that afterwards. So AMLB, we are a virtual CFO and accounting business in Canada, serving Canadian entrepreneurs and nonprofits. And I think probably a unique part of our business is that 40% of our clients are actually not-for-profits. And we started about 4 years ago. It was just during the pandemic, a very challenging time to start a business. And we talked to 100 potential clients, not trying to sell them anything, just listening to their pain points, asking them basic questions about what would you love if you had like your perfect accountant, what do you not like about working with your current accountant? And then if you had a magic wand, what could you change about your relationship with your accountant? And then based on those, we kind of came up with our 4 differentiators. And I mean, we all know what those are in terms of being responsive to clients and caring more than the transactional. And so there's ways that we've used Carbon actually to design our systems intentionally to achieve some of those differentiators. And yeah, our goal is to help our clients and our team members reach their potential. That's sort of what we're all about. I want to build a firm, hopefully, that I would want to work at and feel excited about. And I'm not an accounting, technical expert by any stretch. I would say I'm more of a business person. So we've spent some time over the years. We're at about 22 people now, grown to, and we have half our team is outside of Canada, and the other half is in Canada. So happy to share more as we go through this journey. And I also will say I highly recommend these webinars. Have learned a ton from other firm owners over the last 4 years. Such a generous community, and I'm happy to share a bit here.
And just so you know, you are hiring. So if anyone wants to be, is it client management role? Is that what it is?
That's right. Yeah, we're just going to post it tomorrow.
Going to 23, everybody. 23.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for the plug.
Jason, I'm going to hand over to you. You've got some slides. We only have 3 slides left, everybody.
Yeah.
And this is the rest of the talk. So we're gonna open up and have some dialogue. We're gonna have fun. Hopefully you have fun too. So I'll be manning the Q&A and the chat. So feel free to throw in questions. The more you throw in here, the more fun it's going to be. The more we're going to dig into the details. One fun fact on the EOS traction side of things, when we did the interviews in the book, about 25% of all the folks that we interviewed were using traction. And so essentially in the audience here, I don't know where it was with you, it was on your particular piece, but we're generally all integrators here. I don't know about Jason. He's more of he's one of the other categories, but I'm also an integrator. So,
Interesting.
yeah, because again, in terms of just relationships and also operational expertise, that's what we have on the panel today. So, Jason, take us away, man.
All right. Well, I guess I also want to say if you're listening to these operators and owners, don't feel bad. So try not to compare yourself. We, like Moez said, this is a community. We're all here to learn from each other. But you can already hear just the kind of things they do, just how they design their companies. That stuff is not. It's not. We don't all usually just default in those ways, but they do, and they did. So it's just amazing to learn the things they've done. And then when you do things like mergers, you start rolling other companies, you just create complete chaos. So so when they're able to manage that, you get growth in return, but when they can manage things like that, these are people to learn from. And Mark at Ignite, they've done a lot on scorecards. I mean, there's some great stories in the book. You're going to hear about that. So Mark, we're going to just ask you this question. I think there were 10 metrics that, and y'all, these people could have changed this stuff by now, right? They're always tweaking their business. So, Mark, if there are still 10, which 10 metrics actually drive, which is what we want, behavioral change, right? Versus just a bunch of noise and you going, cool, I got my scorecard like EOS told me. What's actually changing your team and client service?
Yeah, so the simple answer to that, Jason, is just strictly trial and error, right? So when I got to Ignite, they'd been working for a couple of years already trying to find a scorecard that would work. And US teaches leading and lagging metrics, and those things are really easier in a retail environment, but in a client service environment, much more difficult. So it was actually the date Jason, I'm going to take you on a journey. Okay. You were
Yes,
there, by the
we
way,
need it. We need it.
October 5th, 2022. Do you remember what you were doing?
October 5th, 2022. What was I doing?
I'll tell you, I remember,
Okay.
because
Okay.
I was there, Ian was there. You guys ran a webinar called Mine Your Accounting Firm's Data to Discover
Yes.
Powerful Insights.
Ah,
Mm.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
that's correct.
And that changed the way we thought about data, right? Because Ian kind of taught us you can make data out of anything, right? You just had to be consistent. So there are a few highlights from that where service outcomes are inherently unknowable. You said that, Jason. You also said that subjectivity often rules over objectivity. Inertia stops progress. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I think that was Ian's favorite. Perfection can only be achieved after reviewing and iterating on your data, and data is in the mind of the knowledge provider. So data is not the goal, its insights are the goal. We're where we learn things. I shortened that one a little bit, Jason. Yours was a little bit longer than
Yeah.
that. So
No.
anyway, so that really changed how we started to look at scorecarding, because we were stuck. We couldn't get these lagging and leading indicators. We couldn't find something that we could measure weekly. So we turned to that, and then we started finding data where there was none to start, right? And it was super, that idea was so valuable in how we began to provide our team with a successful scorecard.
I
So
love it. Mark, can you give a real specific real specific scorecard? Because you said it well, retail has a
yeah,
lot of data you can know, knowledge providers. There's just a lot of invisible stuff we can't know, but we talked about how you can know it. Like, what is one scorecard you're using? Maybe it's y'all's favorite. You're like, that really tells us so much. It produces insights, patterned insights over time. Is there a favorite y'all have?
yeah, one of the great ones that we found is we ran a 5 roles exercise with all our teams, and we asked them what they were trying to accomplish in the role. And that's not just accounting, right? We asked them to be more descriptive. And from those 5 roles, we found, so one of them came out as we want to be a great team player. We want to be a role, I think it was a great team role model, right? So, well, how does that happen when you have team members all over the country, right? How do you encourage that in your culture? Because we're intentional about culture. So one of the things is, how many peer interactions did you initiate last week? So again, somewhat subjective, right? But it forces our team members to think about connecting, right? And so that was one of the highlights, I think, from the scorecard, and where our team members get to reflect back and go, how many peer interactions did I actually have, right? And when they sit and write one and their goal was 5, they're like, okay, I got to work on that next week. So this is where we're trying to affect behavior, right? The same with client relationships. Great client relationships is a role that our team endeavors to have, right? So, well, how many emails do you have in your triage at the end of the week? So we use Carbon to help us with that. And again, they have a goal of being less than, I think it's 9. And so if they have more than that, they have to think about that. Okay, so next week, how do I continue to provide better client service by responding quicker? Things of those nature.
Yeah. And
We still have analytical ones, like we still have utilization rates and things like that, but
yeah,
our team is engaged in those other ones as well.
yeah. And it's these other metrics that really can be so valuable because y'all care about culture so much. And I love how you said it. We actually want the peers to communicate together. The metric just reminds them to do it, right? We don't want them to feel bad that they're not on a metric. They're just going, oh, I need to communicate more with my peer group. And that's what drives great community, great firms, great service. And the metric for y'all is just like, that's fine, but it's starting to produce a behavior that's really, really valuable.
And also highlights when somebody's feeling disconnected, right? So their manager is able to see, hey, I've noticed the last few weeks you haven't really connected that much. Why, right? We're able to ask the questions why and dig deeper into those things. I'm too busy, or so does that highlight capacity problems? Maybe there's something going on in that um, team member's life, right? And then we look at their melt. That's another Jason Plummer quote. So yeah, so lots of stuff like that. There's metrics like learn and bloom, right? So how much professional development did you accomplish this week? What did you learn? And it's not just I learned one thing. They actually put notes and comments in their scorecard so their manager can ask them, what did you learn? How can you teach it to somebody else? It's been really, really positive that way, for
I think
sure.
the, I think the big thing about this is, and there's the whole thing with dysfunctions, the dysfunctions of teams, right? It's lagging versus leading measures, and it's ownership. It's giving ownership to the staff to be able to report. And Victoria, I know when we talk about what happened and how you guys transformed in Volta, you have quite a lot that you're able to do there. But so I want you to chime in. But those scorecards are things aligned to your values. They're aligned to the sort of behaviors, but also to the outcomes you want, and you're able to give that ownership to the person to be able to do it on their terms. And it's used as a way to look at it on an ongoing basis, then looking at it in arrears, looking back 3 months. So it's also the rhythms of that, which we talk about quite a bit in the book too, Jason. So Victoria, your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, a lot of that, I think, amazing. We relying on culture, looking at having all of what you're setting up be based in your culture is a big part of it. And giving your team the tools so that they can do these things that are maybe outside of what they normally do, outside of their comfort zone. So if it's filling in a scorecard, if it's being triggered to do these things to connect with their peers, it just starts to move them along instead of just heads down in their work. And I think that was a big part of what we tried to do as well. It's just really give the team members tools to be able to actually thrive where we wanted them to thrive.
Good stuff. And that's what we do as leaders of people, right? We do want them to stretch, right? We want to say, here's a bar, reach up for it in a safe place. That's kind of what we're doing. So when our team feel the weight of the things we're asking them to do, that's what a leader does. It's like, hey, there's more in you, stretch out. And it's really such a wonderful thing. Moez, do you have any thoughts on these metrics, kind of and tying them to culture, really driving pretty amazing behavior on a team?
Yeah, I think learning a lot, by the way, just listening to Mark there and Victoria as well. Maybe just one thing to add is we introduced a quarterly employee satisfaction survey, and we use the results of that. So we tell the team that we read every single comment that comes out of those. Ali and myself, and now our director of Cloud Finance Services, and we action plan against those. And that also informs what metrics we track. So just as an example, one of sort of the comments we're getting back was that, because everyone is so busy, sometimes some people may not be as responsive as others, and then it impacts downstream in terms of ability to get work to clients, or just feeling more stressed out because I've got multiple things piling up. And so one of the things that we have a qualitative metric around is responsiveness to each other as team members. And we've established a standard around that to say, in Carbon, you need to respond within 1 business day to any comments or notes or anything else that you're tagged in. And on Teams, it's a 4 business hour turnaround. So it's not like you got to do it in real time within like an hour. Of course, we all want to have an ability to manage our schedules, but to be respectful, having a standard, and then being, as part of your KPIs at the end of that quarter and based on team feedback, are you meeting, that? And I think that the team has responded really favorably, and that's moved the dial on that employee satisfaction score.
I love it. Uh, so I got one follow up, Ian. What do you think? And then we'll move on
Yeah,
from this.
I'm just going to jump in one more.
Yeah.
What's interesting there was I assume that those policies, again, when you're thinking about putting those sort of parameters and barriers in place, it's not because you thought that that needed to be the case. It's because the team was asking for that. And that's the disarming nature of it, where it's like we're setting up some rules of engagement for us collectively because we're trying to do the better good for the entire organization. That's something to take into account here. Because again, you look at what's being done here from all three of these leaders, it's thinking about the culture and being intentional on that and allowing for it to be, I would say, curated, and being able to be owned and led by the collective group, not necessarily one individual. So that's a big deal. Jason, over to you. Your question.
Yeah, I just want to finish with Mark, since y'all care about culture. Out of some of this, we're watching you kind of stuff. There can be this surveillance culture, like this Big Brother kind of thing. And so there's a way to roll these kind of metrics out, or to go, hey, y'all, aren't you excited? We have a brand new metric we're tracking on all of you. And they don't necessarily jump up and down, but they need to know that the heart behind it is to care about the culture. How do you roadmap that out into a team to not make them feel the wrong way about it?
Yeah, we have a constant feedback loop. But we're committed to running it. So we break our year up into threes, like Gary does. So we have thirdlies, we call them. We hold thirdly conversations, but every thirdly is when we'll run a new scorecard, right? Or we'll update the scorecard. So and the team always knows that they can comment and say, hey, this metric didn't really do what I think you want it to do, or they get to ask questions about it, or we'll change it. We may change their goal. We may change their multiplier because multipliers are built based on experience. So not everybody has the same goal because somebody might have 15 years when somebody has two. So things like that. But I think it's the feedback loop that really makes it successful. So our team believes that they have some input and on what's being measured and how it's being measured and things of that nature.
I love it. Cool. And that's a throwback to Gary Wood from the last webinar where he broke his firm up into three different 4-month sections in a year, which starts to match really firms better than our general calendar quarter. So
What I like
Yeah.
about that is the continuous improvement, Mark, which is
Yeah.
the team is able to be long enough in it to be able to feel it and have a point of view, but not too long in it where we put it for a year that we're not able to make those adjustments. And so that sort of give and take is what's necessary to really be able to drive adoption, but also to get the ability to tune. And I think it's really, really key there for folks.
Yeah.
yeah.
Some other things we do too is like we allow them to pick what colors they use because they, they can highlight. Nobody likes red, Jason.
Right. Of
Right.
course.
So one team member might have purple and yellow, and then so they own it as their own little thing. It's the last thing they do on their last day of work for the week. But they fill it out all week, and their client managers or their managers really use them in discussion points throughout the week. So it's not something we just do and never talk about. It's something it's consistently looked at, it's consistently improved upon, and it's all about a winning. Like it's about winning, not what you lost at or what you didn't do well. It really is focused on what you're winning at and how you continue to win in other areas as well. So
That's incredible. Okay, Victoria, you're gonna like fill us with your knowledge too now. So we'll start out, and these things move fast, so we gotta fly through these. So Victoria, when you were in Volta, what's your step-by-step process for converting, ad hoc workflows into self-managed quality systems? Self-managed being key. Don't we all want tons of self-managed team members? Where are all those people? We love them. And how do you balance the competitive scoring with team collaboration? There's a lot
Yeah,
to that.
there's a lot to that. And like listening to Mark, my head's going, oh yeah, we did that too. And we did this and this helped build that up. So really from what happened at Involta was David was an avid reader. David, our founder, was an avid reader. And he would come back on a Monday morning and say, I read a book on the weekend. And I would be, take a breath and say, okay, what are we doing now? And he was so excited about doing these things. I mean, no Netflix, no rules, the traction, there was all sorts of things. And I was very old school. I grew up in this business. I started in accounting when we had the leather bound books that you had to unscrew the lid to put the extra papers in. So it was a lot of give and take between us. But he would come in and he would be full of these ideas and you'd sit back and you think, okay, well, let's see what we can do with them. And there was a lot of trial and error. And when we started, we ripped off the Band-Aid. So we got rid of time tracking. And then we stepped back and went, oh, wait a minute, we got rid of time tracking. What are we going to do here? And so with how are we going to make sure that our teams are, moving forward, the work is getting done. And I come from a quality background. Before I joined Involta, my big thing was, quality controls at other firms that I had worked with. And that was a big part that I wanted to make sure that, yeah, we need to have this in place so that our teams don't, go sort of sideways. So one thing we did was we created pods. And so our teams were formed into smaller teams, and they would work together. They would have sort of a hierarchy within that team. And we gave them the tools that they needed to self-manage within their little pod. So we gave them a quality checklist. We gave them meeting cadence. We gave them tools like an after action review, so that when anything was introduced to them, whether it was introduced to firm-wide as a whole, we would try it for 3 months, and then we would give everybody a voice to come back and say, hey, what's working, what's not working? Let's learn from this. And then we gave that tool even within the teams, like within the team, if they wanted to deviate a little bit from the process, the quality control. I loved my quality control checklist. Not all of the teams did. And so they took it and they manipulated it a little bit. They changed it. And we let them have that voice, let them communicate it. But then what we did is we would pop into accounts. And so in each team, we would pop in and we would do reviews, and we would give them a score of, this is how great you're doing with the quality of the books. This is how great you're doing with the quality of how you're managing carbon. This is what we see in the meetings that you're taking, because all of our meetings were recorded. I mean, we were 100% remote. So we were doing all of this spread all across the country and trying to keep a handle on things, but give our teams the voices that they need and the tools that they needed to accomplish what we wanted them to do. And then with all of that, we developed our core values. Everything was based on our core values. So when we would have a meeting, we would an after action review was a great one. It would start with our core values. This is why we're meeting, and these core values are going to be honored in this meeting as we figure out maybe what went wrong, what wasn't working, and how we can fix it. We also did the quarterly surveys. Love that. We not only said, well, initially we said, okay, we're working with these, but then we started to publish the results. Good, bad, ugly. We published them. We said, this is what y'all are saying. Can we, and this is what we're doing to work with that. Some of it we're going to have to put on the back burner, but some of it, we're going to make this change, or we're going to make this tweak to make this work. So I think that's what we did. And then for the competitive scoring and team collaboration, the teams had some great names, and they've all left my brain right now, but each pod was encouraged to have a fun little name. One popped in. Sons of Anarchy was one of them. They each had, really clever names, and they would own those and live with them. And that's how we referred to that team in everything. So if we were communicating with, whatever the team name was. And so that helped to build some of that competition and collaboration. And even when we would go in and review their 5 files for each team, we would publish those results as well, in the sense that, hey, everybody, these are the improvements we're seeing on this team, and let's celebrate together. We would always celebrate the wins. And as that system grew, then we started doing peer reviews. So we would ask one team leader to review another team's work, just share one back and forth. And what I saw from that is they were learning from each other. They were getting new ideas. They were adjusting how maybe they were doing their quality systems. So there was a lot going on. But as I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember all that. It was so exciting, and we were really having a good time. But there was definitely a lot of trial and error, and there was a lot of times where we sat back and said, well, that was a big failure. Let's try something else on Monday. We'll figure it out. Read another book, David, and we'll figure something new out.
Yeah, that's what you do. Well, one theme I'm hearing from you and from Mark too is this webinar is a lot about data. So data is really embedded in a lot of it. But I'm hearing y'all talk a lot about culture too. So it's like we're leveraging data. And so in our book, we don't bash time tracking or not time tracking. We have some pretty significant conversations about it. But whether you do time tracking or not, it's some form of data, right? And so Victoria, when y'all got rid of it, you wanted more data. And I think that's a message to everybody. You need data. You have to have metrics. Because you can't, there's things you can't know about your firm. And the data and the metrics produce the patterns, they produce the insights. And I'm hearing y'all talk about how uplifting it is to your culture, how safe your culture is enough to make it competitive. You can't do that unless the team are safe, right? They want that. People want hidden things when they're not safe. They want open things and transparent things when they are safe. And that's all the safety comes from the leaders. That is where it is from. Yeah, the team don't produce that safety. It is these three people on the call. They produce it. They make it happen in places where it doesn't. So I think it's beautiful what y'all have done in the organizations y'all created. Ian, you got any follow up on that?
Yeah, one, it goes back to like just creating trust, right? And I think one of the questions that came up, and thanks Mark for answering a bunch of them, was a lot of us are fearful in terms of putting out those scorecards and having them being seen. And you all three of you have built cultures where you're able to celebrate the wins, talk about the mistakes, and do that continuous improvement. So how did you all do that? And I think that's where some people here are, struggling with, well, how do I approach that? How do I create that situation where that my team can trust me, I can trust them, and we can work hand in hand on creating and executing these scorecards and building a better business together. So what's some of the secret for you guys?
One phrase that came up in one of our early days from one of our team members was sunshine the failures. So we as a leadership team had to not be afraid to say, we got it wrong. And, we heard what you're saying and we're going to fix it. So, let's chat about this and figure it out. But that I think was really impactful as we were doing some of these um, visionary things.
Yeah. How about you, Moez, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what Victoria was saying. It's kind of, I was chuckling because we had a leadership offsite last week and talking about the entrepreneurial operating system. And one of the things was about, well, these are the behaviors, the AMLB way, like the core values that we had and then we tweaked that we want to, we believe are key for us to be successful and create that culture in the next year. And then we talked about as a leadership team, which of these do we honestly think that we're exhibiting and not? And next week, we have a meeting on Monday, actually, with our team to be vulnerable and be honest about that. And exactly what Victoria, I think that's so important is to lead from the front that way and be honest about that and that we're all on a journey and what we're doing to improve. And every Monday roundtable that we talk about what's one thing that went well last week, what's one challenge that we faced, and what we're looking forward to this week. And I also include my own challenges in that conversation, as uncomfortable as that can be sometimes. But I think once you start doing it and you realize that it's actually more helpful than harmful for the team, I think that motivates you to even do it more.
Mark, how about you?
Yeah, being vulnerable of mistakes. I mean, this is a funny one, but we had brought in a different workflow piece of software that we tried out for a year before we did Carbon, and we had to admit we picked the wrong one, right? And this wasn't working, and we got out of it, and we made the change quickly. So when your team sees that you make mistakes and you're willing to change direction, it's not about, hey, I did this wrong, smack my hand. It's, hey, I did this wrong. I need to do something different or something better. I think that gives your team courage to admit the same thing. We meet with our team, our whole team. We have a state of the firm, is what we call it, where they are full on open mic to challenge us on anything, um, from top to bottom in the organization, and and that's been good. That's been really good for us. And core values are key, like Victoria said. Huge, huge. That everything is circles around that part of your business.
Yeah, it's cool.
We're
Ian?
going to transition to the next slide, but as we do that, it's going to go to you, Moaz, first. But one of the questions that came up was, hey, we talked about time. If you take that away, well, what are you using to measure? And was brought up at the beginning of this with Victoria, which was really around pods, right? And how do you make these pods get to the highest level of productivity, which ultimately leads to the highest level of profitability. And so it's really a good segue question here for this next part that I want you to jump into. So Jason, take us away.
Oh, so yeah, this is another, one of these leaders creating their own metrics. It's just pretty amazing. So let's just talk about this methodology of calculating this thing, revenue service per team member. Y'all probably made up all kind of metrics, I imagine. What is this thing? How do you, I mean, like how in the world can you do that when all the services are completely different, complex? Some are fast, deliverables, some are long. Like, how do you figure out a metric that you can rely on as leaders that means anything?
Now you're making me worried that we have got something wrong because we like
Okay.
oversimplified this thing probably to the point that it's, somewhat useful. So I will start with that to say, I think it's always two steps forward, one step backward. And so we really don't have it, figured out, maybe in a way that it might seem as we're on a webinar here talking about it as experts, I think. But yeah, I mean, two things I would say. One is we made it a priority for ourselves early on for AMLB to be a place that we would want to work at, right? So like, how do we design, this business intentionally? Because we know what the pain points are. Like, I wouldn't want to go, like I worked at two big four accounting firms and I've been through two busy seasons, and it will make anybody want to leave and go try anything else other than work in an accounting firm. So we got to figure some things out there to allow team members to have work-life balance, right? While also building a firm that is profitable and allows you to invest back into your people, your process, your technology. So this was our initial thinking. I just want to lay the groundwork for how we came up with this. And really, kind of cheated here because we got into communities, joined Facebook groups, like the Workflow Watering Hole Facebook group that Kelly Parks runs. I don't know if she's here. And then you've got another QuickBooks group, and just like watching how different people are doing things, joining webinars like this. And then there was a very simple metric I remember that was, as long as you can target your revenue service per team member to be like 3 times their salary, and then kind of work back to your gross margin and your net margin, like that should pretty much work itself out. Then you don't have to get too complicated with tracking, all the various complexities of time and capacity. And we said, okay, let's try to use this. So I actually wrote some things down here because it says exact methodology, and I had to like really write it down in a way that I could explain it. So I'm going to just look at that. So where we are today, right? So there are a couple of Excel files, admittedly, as any accountant would have, that are powering this thing. But we hired students from the management engineering program at the University of Waterloo here in Canada. And yeah, exactly. Ian, shout out to you because I know you've been helping to connect
Great
some of them to
school and
mentors.
great using industrial engineers to the power of good. Nice job.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, when we onboard a client, we try to understand the volume and the complexity of the work involved. And based on that, we're able to then, create the pricing, right? So we have our hourly rates per role that are based on industry benchmarks, and we try to target those hourly rates to be at least 3 times salary for that role. It's not exact science, but it's close enough. And then we connect the QuickBooks or Xero or whatever cloud ledger is being used by that prospect to our analytics tool. And it kind of spits out certain volume and complexity information, like how many transactions, how many credit cards, bank accounts, are there any adjusting entries? Based on all those factors, we put them into our pricing model, and then it creates estimates. And it actually creates estimates of time by role, and then it multiplies that by the rates, which then basically gives you a revenue, expected revenue per role for that engagement. We bid based on that. If the client accepts, where systems go. And then we ask our team now on a bi-weekly basis to keep time estimates up to date. So the baseline has been created based on the pricing model that we have. And then every 2 weeks they go and they calibrate this. So actually, it says 3 credit cards, but there's actually 5 credit cards. It takes me a lot longer. So I'm going to update that number. And then based on that, we have the capacity, revenue per team member. Hopefully that made some sense as to how we came up with that. And then we can say, what is your target revenue serviced, right, for your role? And then what is your actual? And look, if somebody is above or below by a few $1,000s, we're not, going after them. It's actually more of a discussion tool. And it's more from a work-life balance perspective. We don't want people to be way over. If you're a bit under, it's usually because you're helping out on other projects or there was some other reason for that. But it's more to make sure that there's we're able to predict capacity issues in the future, have a conversation, and then talk about resourcing, deep dive into that client also from a pricing perspective, because we're able to now look at the expected price from the pricing model initially to the actual sort of what, the pricing should be based on our experience, and then figure out, do we have to reprice the client? Do we have to talk about scope with the client? So I'm going to pause there because there's a lot of information and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, so like what I loved about this, a couple different things, and we'll go through it. You did not get it right the first time. We talked about
No.
this when we interviewed
Yeah.
in the book, right? You did, but what it was it's so rich in data and it has such a great feedback because you're not doing it in the motions that it updates your pricing, it updates your analytical model, and then as you went through it, you changed what your revenue per service per team member would be because you started, if my memory serves, about 25% higher than what you thought it was, and you brought it down because you wanted to have that work-life balance, and then it stabilized. And that's the kind of journey that folks need to realize that you can tell them what the number would be. I'm not going to have you do that here, but that's not the right number for everybody that's in the audience, right? It's going to be unique to your firm, but the methodology works and the sort of constant getting the data and reevaluating, just like Victoria, you did the same. And Mark, you do that as well with your scorecards. That's the sort of secret sauce to it. So that's kind of my feedback on that. Jason, thoughts?
Yeah. No, it's okay. I just want to keep pointing out the lens of a leader that you are listening to. These metrics are being used to care for their team, right? And I think the thing we all hated in the firms we trained in is that up on high they would come and go, here's a golden metric. And we knew it was wrong. We knew it was, but y'all go, we're going to try something. Here it is. Here's an iteration. What do you think? And there's, y'all recognize your team has all this wisdom and you're going to go try to get that information into your metrics too. And that's the way y'all lead. And the whole goal is that they're not overworking, that you catch that, that you say, hey, you're not taking time off. You need to take more time off. What is going on that I'm not knowing? It's just such a perspective that y'all have as leaders. Moaz, I guess, is that a right, reference about what you're going to use these metrics? It's not even the metric. It's for your people so you can lead them well.
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier, Jason, I think Mark was talking about the scorecard and, how do you, and frankly, it's authentically like, are you trying to surveil your people and are you trying to micromanage them, and asking yourself that question honestly, versus are you trying to do this for the benefit of the organization, of course, but for your people and to help them reach their potential. And if you do feel like you're doing that, then as part of your change management communication, the saying is you have to say something 7 times for someone to really hear it. I think making sure that you're doing that at an organization level, but also through the people managers to each person, and then having that conversation on an ongoing basis to say, if you do hear any feedback, oh, you know what, like, why am I being punished for being below my metric here? And we're like, wait a minute, why are we using it that way? Because this was meant to be used in a different way, right? So it definitely got to make sure you use that metric in the right way and then address those issues if they're being used incorrectly.
Yeah, very cool. One quick thing I want to get all three of you to tell us is, everybody that's listening, it's easy to go, wow, these people have it together. This metric is so complicated. I never could have thought about that. I'm really curious how many iterations though y'all went through, because it was wrong the first time. I know that. If you can think of a metric you ended up really going, this thing really produces some great information. It's stable. It's insightful. It's very consistent. It really helps us lead well. I would love to go through each one of you and go, if you think about that metric, can you think how many times you iterated on it? Was it 20, 30? Victoria, do you know that number?
So
It
pick the
was a
metric. So
lot.
state the metric and then state the sort of time
Yeah.
frame you had iterated.
Okay, yeah. So we went similar. I'm listening to Moaz. I'm like, oh, that would have been so helpful because we sort of went from a different direction in that we in the pod we looked at a billable rate for each role and how many hours of client-facing work we expected from them, and then we would use that as this is the capacity for this team. And so we would use that information to say, yeah, you can take on this new client that has been priced out at this price, and this is what's planning. So that's kind of the metric we use for capacity planning. The getting it right. I don't even know how many times we played with
Okay.
it, we tweaked it. We had feedback that, which was really important. It's like, well, it doesn't need to be this granular from one team. And from another team, we'd have, oh, I need more. I need to figure it out. I need more detail to be able to really bring that to my team. So um, even when we settled on this is what we're aiming for, I think each pod took it and did a little playing with it. And I think it was Jason, when you went through the melt theory,
Mm,
that helped me so much in how I was trying to explain where I was trying to get to. I was getting there, but I didn't have all of that language that you had to try to explain to people that, yes, we're taking into account all the work-life balance as well.
yeah.
But I don't even know how many times we
Yeah.
like monthly for 2 years.
Oh
We
man.
were we were making small adjustments here and there.
Yeah. Mark, how about you? Like a really great metric you could list and how many iterations you can think about it took y'all to get it to where you could use it.
Yeah, so number of files per month is probably the biggest one that has produced the biggest, but it took us years.
Wow.
Honestly, Jason, it took us years, like to get to a point where, okay, how do we simplify it? Because the metrics have to be simple, right?
Mm,
For your team to want to engage, they have to be simple. It can't be some massive, from our perspective, anyways, some massive calculation, right? So because they fill them out all themselves, right? So that was probably the one I think that worked, and we engaged them in the process by saying, okay, capacity wise, taking work life balance into consideration, how many files do you think you can get in a month, right? And then I took my whole team, and then we built something called the top 28 again on an Excel spreadsheet because we still use those a lot. But yeah, so we have a top 28 that we refer to almost weekly, if not daily, right, on where people are with projects. So
I love it. All right. Moez, how about you? What's a metric that y'all love and how many iterations, how long it took you to build?
Yeah, I think Jason, if we go back to this one, the revenue service per team member, that was one of the first ones we had. And we did start at 3x. And funny enough, we were like, well, why can't we get it to 4 or 5 and use AI and automation? And who knows, maybe one day it's going to be 100x, right? With what's coming down the pipe. But we actually went back down to 3x because we listened to our team, I think, and got some feedback. And as Victoria, I think, was mentioning earlier, built in more capacity in there, like some percentages for unexpected leaves and sick days and things. I mean, we had built in some, but we underestimated how much time to build in there. And so instead of building in 10%, now we build in a 15% buffer for everyone, right? For unexpected things. And I think somebody asked a question about how do you account for bad behavior and so on. And so that's part of it exactly as well, is you have to allow for basically expected the unexpected. And so we have gone back down from 3 to 4 to 5, back down to the 3 years later.
I love it. Okay. Ian.
Well,
Uh,
one thing before we
okay.
get off that
Yeah.
is I just want everyone to realize that I think where a lot of people get stumbled on this concept collectively is the pursuit of perfection
Mm,
before rolling something out. And all three of these leaders knew there was a way to try to do something and put something in and were able to explore it with their team, and some work and some don't, right? But if you have that trust and you have the ability as a leader to be able to have the culture to allow for that iterative process, then you're able in time to get to, like Mark said, a couple of years. Victoria, I think as you guys were in Volta, it never was done. It was always in motion.
Yeah.
And Moaz, I think you've settled in something, but now you're trying to take that further and further extrapolate into other goodness. And so the job's never done. You're never going to be able to have it perfect when you roll it out. It's going to fail. But then the iterative process will get you to success. And where all three of these leaders are at in their businesses now is infinitely better than where they were years ago. And it's that understanding that we're going to go and experiment and learn that is going to get you to better outcomes overall. So anyways, that's a little bit of the color and the takeaway.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
so
it. Okay. Well, so we've been talking about metrics, pods, the melt theory, all of that's in our book. So, and it's funny. I'm a former, well, I'm not a former, I'm a CPA visionary turned coach and consultant. And I wrote a book with somebody that was way more nerdy than I knew. So Ian is an industrial engineer, a lot of engineering degrees. I'm like, dang, man. I got a lot of my calculations wrong in the book. He's like, bro, that's not how you do a math calculation. I'm like, shut up, just fix it, Ian. I don't care. But the book becomes a heavy reference manual for a lot of these things where what we're trying to do, and we make this point in the book, is scale a services company. Turns out that is super difficult to do. That is not easy to do. And we're excited for this book to come out. We're going to do a soft launch at our conference. Thrival has a deeper weekend conference in Greenville, South Carolina every year. And the very last day, the very last thing we do, Carbon's throwing a massive party for us. Thank you, Carbon. Thank you, Ian and Carbon. To launch the book, we're going to have everybody that comes is going to have an advance copy of the book before it's even ready, because it comes out December 9th, I believe, is our published date. So everybody come by, and there's a code, Carbon 20. If you'll get 20% off if you come to the conference.
There's only like 10 seats left. So
yeah,
again, it's not that we're that close to the date, but there is limited availability. So if you are interested in going,
Yeah.
you better sign up pretty quick because it will be completely sold out.
Yeah.
For Victoria, Moaz, and Mark, I know we're doing the book party here and the signatures. You shouldn't get our signatures. You get their signatures. They're the
That's
ones
right.
yards. They're the ones that actually have really sort of cracked the code. We're just a conduit within this book. So, there's a lot of folks that were on the call here that were part of who we interviewed and whatnot. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think this goes back to the community at large. There's a lot of opportunity to run our businesses better. None of us have it perfect. And, we learned a ton on this. I know you all said you learned a bunch from each other. And those that are listening, the book's a good guide to be able to learn what all those experiences kind of come together with a recipe and a blueprint about how to move forward.
Yeah. Excited. All right, Victoria, Moaz, Mark, thank you for leading. Thank you for taking on the burden that comes with, and for making our profession, the best profession to work in. And we appreciate y'all coming to the conference to the webinar and teaching us. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
If you're appreciative, whatnot, can you give a big thank you to in the chat here to all three of these folks again,
amazing.
sharing their wisdom and again, really in terms of going through their journeys. We really appreciate it. And it really helps us all drive better firms.
Yeah, it does. Okay, we're out. We got 2 more of these coming with more people that we interviewed for the book. These people are mind-blowing, I know. So thank you, Victoria, Moaz, and Mark. We'll see you. Have a great week, y'all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jason. Thanks,
Take care.
Ian. Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
We'll
good one.
see you.